Hey everyone, Kevin here with Victory 4x4. In this video, we're going to be installing our Viper Cut style wings to pair with our Blitz style front bumper on this 4th Gen Toyota Tacoma. Now, if you're installing these Viper Cut wings, hopefully you've already got your Blitz bumper as well, because you're going to need that to get these on. Go ahead and check out the full Blitz bumper install video so that you can get to this point and be ready to make this cut. In order to do it, we're really just calling out 3 main points, if you will, across this front end that we're going to measure down from, make a couple marks, make a line, and of course make our cut. So our first mark essentially needs to fall right in this area. Basically, we're continuing a line or a seam, if you will, that's already in our front bumper out here and carrying it out around the edge. So knowing that, I'm going to take a small piece of blue tape. Depending on the color of your truck, you might be able to just mark right on here. It's entirely up to you in that sense, but this is going to make that stand out just a little bit more, so we have a spot to make our mark and be able to see it just a little bit better. Where we're going to be measuring from is going to be essentially right here. You've got roughly 3 body lines that all kind of meet and converge right in this point. That's where you're looking for. You're going to line, ideally, a flexible tape like I have here up with that location, and then just let it drape straight down. And as it does that, you'll kind of draw it in toward the front edge of the bumper, and you're going to be looking to make a mark right here at 8 1/4 inches. So if I can do this, I will have to hold it. The top's obviously going to fall a little bit. So really nothing too crazy down here. Just make sure you get a nice visible mark. Double check it as many times as you need to. Take as much time as you need during this step. But once again, 8 1/4 is what we're looking for there. Then coming kind of all the way around the side here to the wheel opening area, you're going to be measuring down from this point here where the fender and the front fascia meet, up in this corner with the headlight as well. Knowing that we're going to land roughly in this area, I'll do the same thing up here. Just take a piece of tape, and we're going to be measuring right along the seam where the fender flare meets the painted fascia here. I'll just put that tape right down there nice and tight. And then again, from that point here on the fascia, we're coming straight down and making a mark here at 13 3/8. Now, I don't know for sure what the camera is going to pick up. You may see that I have 2 marks here. So I wasn't too happy with my first small mark. I readjusted, redid it a little larger here. So once again, take as much time as you need. Make sure you're happy with your measurements before you move on to the next one, which will be right down here. So following that same seam down to the fender flare, we're going to come down from this point where it intersects the flare and make a mark at 11. So I'll put a piece of tape in here as well. And then get ready to lay that out a little more accurately. This is where the flexible tape really kind of shines in this process. It's going to lay nice and flat across the flare and the rest of the contours on the body while you're making these marks. So ideally, you'll pick up one of these. From there, it's really just a matter of connecting the dots, or the marks that you made, if you will. The easiest way to do that is to grab a laser level and get it lined up with these 2 points that you did first off here. It's pretty much a nice straight line across from there, but a laser level is going to make a little bit of a straighter line around some of these small contours, rather than you just grabbing a piece of tape and connecting those two, which is still very doable. I know that line kind of gets drowned out by our studio lights here while we're filming, so hopefully that helps you kind of see where it's at. And basically we're just going to use that as a guide along with some fine line tape like we have here, and just connect these two. I'm basically just using the bottom of my tape as my line here, so I'll know to cut right along this bottom edge here in just a moment. Just to give you another point of reference, from the bottom of the sensor out here down to the bottom edge of this line, I measured that. It was about 1.5 to 1 3/8. That's not a hard measurement we're gonna give you, but just to know that you're in the general range, that's a good reference there. And then essentially out here, you're just carrying this line out nice and parallel to the ground, assuming your truck is sitting relatively level from the end point there, and then connecting with your mark out here around the edge. And that's where you're going to be trimming off the bottom edge of this flare. So by now you've already watched the full blitz video, you've already had this whole fascia removed. You're going to know ideally where all your wires are behind here, but just take a second look, make sure that none of that is tucked in behind here where you're going to cut. We're going to do most of our cut with our 4.5 inch cutoff here. We've also got a small air cutoff over on the bench and a little air saw here. So use the tools you have available to you. This will do most of the work just fine, but obviously some of the more tedious bits, you want to be a little more careful. You may have to pop this flare out to get all the way through the back edge of the fascia, but ideally you'll also remove or at least disconnect the front edge of the wheel liner in here still at this time. And then it's just a matter of following the bottom edge of your line, making that cut, and then usually we'll come back and clean that up with a flap wheel style sanding disc, or even just a nice sharp razor blade will take off most of the residue on the bottom edge of there. Once you've gotten all the way through, some of your plastic might kind of melt together along the way. You can usually just break that off and get this section removed and then work on cleaning up that cut. Once you've got at least most stuff cleaned up from the bottom edge of this cut, it's a good time to grab your wing and do an initial test fit. That way you still have this tape here to make any marks you may need to along here and do any minor additional fitment trimming before removing the tape and doing your final install. When it comes to installing your wing, of course they are side specific, so I've got the driver's side wing here since we are on the driver's side. I first want to point out the 2 inside holes here that you're going to use to mount to this inside mounting flange. Those are the only 2 that are going to receive hex head bolts. These are 3/8 hex heads with washers, so keep that in mind. And you won't really be able to see those once we get this up on here. The remaining hardware for the rest of these holes, so the 3 on the face here as well as the 1 through the bottom, are going to be black 3/8 button heads for a nice clean look there, along with serrated flange nuts on the inside. So with that being said, essentially from here it's just a matter of lining this up and starting all of that hardware by hand. Once you have everything started loosely, you'll need a 7/32 hex or Allen, and then a 9/16 socket, maybe a wrench as well, to tighten up that inside hardware. I like to start by tightening the bottom one down here to just draw things up, and then work our way around the front and then tighten that stuff on the inside. But pay close attention to your gap along the way, make any minor tune-up cuts here that you need to, and then tighten things up in the series that kind of best suits you and gets this thing positioned where you need it. From there, you're obviously going to have some of your factory wheel liner hanging down. Ours got a little bit damaged as we drove this thing around the shop, so hopefully yours is all still intact. Really, it doesn't matter, this part's all being cut off. It's nothing too special or specific here. Basically, we're just coming in right at the bottom edge of our flare cut and kind of making a mark, which is what you see right here, and then carrying that down diagonally toward or just below the other screw over in here, which is tied into the bottom of the washer bottle on this side. It is just a little bit different on the passenger side, but real similar process to how you mark it out. And these kind of felt style wheel liners cut pretty easily with a good pair of scissors or even tin snips. So it's just a matter of following your line there and working all the way across. So once you get the other end cut off, it leaves you with something like this that you're essentially just going to discard or throw away. It leaves you with a pretty clean cut in here once you go back and reinstall all of the existing factory hardware to secure that fender liner. And you've got your wings installed, you can then go repeat this process on the other side to finish up this entire install. So that is it for the Viper cut wings once you've done that on both sides. As always, if you have any questions at all about this install, about the full Blitz bumper install, or anything else we offer here at Victory 4x4, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always send us an email at info@victory4x4.com or call us at 269-459-8447.